Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, the host of the last three brain cells, and host of Between Two Minutes and Orion. I'd like to welcome those watching on the local voice on SoundCloud and those watching on Orion Television. We're going to talk a lot of football here. Obviously, no OAA teams remain in the state playoffs, considering what happened in the state semifinals regarding Adams, Groves, and Harper Woods. Of course, you look at the year that football's had. I mean, really nice year for the league, but unfortunately, there's not going to be a state championship brought into the football world in the OAA this season. So we're going to break each game down. We're going to give my thoughts on what are we looking at heading into next year. So a lot to look at. I know today is the official first day of boys basketball season. Of course, the first day of girls basketball season starts next week. So we'll see what happens. Of course, I did post a boys basketball preview show. It's on the blog at SaginawBay4650 at blogspot.com. Also, the boys basketball preview is out also on the blog at SaginawBay4650 at blogspot.com. So without further ado, let's recap all three games here. I'm going to start with Division 2 because that is the game that has me completely baffled and completely surprised, shocked. Really, a lot of words. I can't describe this game with Groves. I really can't describe the play calling. And I'm not faulting the players here for this. This loss that Groves had to Orchard Lake St. Mary's, it falls flat on the coaches because they made some gambles. You really can't explain it, and I had a friend who went to the game, and he was shocked, surprised how this game went, because, I kind of felt like it was an even matchup. It was really even. Orchard Lake St. Mary's scored first. Groves responded with Noah Sanders scoring a touchdown, and then St. Mary's got it right back. And then Brian Counts answered, throwing a touchdown, tying the score at 14. And then, it was at halftime score 14-14. Then St. Mary's got another touchdown after a long drive, got the lead. Groves responded with the touchdown from Sanders, tying the score up at 21. So this is where it gets really interesting. Middle part of the game here, Chris Little got an interception, but Groves didn't capitalize. But the one that's going to get me upset is there's one play that was in the middle part of the fourth quarter, where Groves was just dominating the game, running the ball. They were dominating. You had Noah Sanders, who was having an incredible game. So why would you decide to call a flea flicker? Why? Why would you call a flea flicker when you're dominating Orchard Lake St. Mary's on the ground? The flea flicker went for a 10-yard loss. That makes absolutely no sense. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? When you're dominating the game on the ground, give it to your best player. You got to give it to Noah Sanders. He was dominating the defense. What are you doing? And then, late in the game, you have a chance to win the game. What are you doing mismanaging the clock? Here's the thing. Just run the play, go out of bounds. You go out of bounds. overtime. You go to overtime. You get the ball first. You get a touchdown run. But then all of a sudden, you'd want to go for two? Why? You want to go for two instead of going for one. If you go for one, you're up 28-21. You don't get it, and you're at 27. And Orchard Lake St. Mary's has got a chance to win it. They go down and get a touchdown. And they kick the extra point. It's game over. 28-27 was the final score of that game. That loss, I am not faulting the players there. I'm not faulting the players. This loss squarely is on the coaching staff. It's on Coach Flaherty. It's on Coach Flaherty. Bottom line is, the play calling. What are you doing running a flea flicker when all you gotta do is run the ball? You gotta run the football. And then, you have a chance to win the game. You can just throw the ball till your players get out of bounds, stops the clock. If you had maybe 2 seconds left or maybe 1 second left, you try a long field goal to win the game. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. And then in overtime, when you have a chance, when you score the touchdown, just go for the extra point. You don't have to go risk take. If you make it, okay, that's fine. But if you don't make it, you're in trouble. And that's what happened to Groves. That's what happened. It's not the players who lost them the game. It was the coaches that lost them the game. You look at Groves. You look at this team. They're a senior-heavy team. You have a proven lineman going to Michigan next year in Avery Gah. You have an experienced team. And then you fall to 0-5 in the state semifinals. I totally thought this was the year for Groves. But they mismanaged it. They blew the game. It wasn't the players who did it, it was the coaches. And I know Coach Flaherty's going to take the blame. I know he is. But bottom line is you just run the football because you're having success against them on the ground. Just run it until they stop it. Just run it until they stop it. And it's those 3 plays basically cost you your season. Those 3 plays, those 3 mistakes cost you your whole season. And I'm not faulting the players for this one. You had a chance to go to Ford Field. You had Orchard Lake St. Mary's, but you wanted them. But 3 plays. You shouldn't have gone for the flea flicker. You shouldn't have. And then, a chance to win the game. Get yourself in position for a long field goal. But then you run out of time. And in overtime, just kick the extra point. pressure on them. Let's say if they do score and go for two, that's going to put it on them. But instead, you go for two, you don't get it, and that's what happens. I don't know how to explain it. You guys basically gave that game away. Bottom line. And now Orchard Lake St. Mary's moves on to the state final, play Byron Center. But you had a chance to win it. You had a chance. If you're Coach Flaherty, you got to be kicking yourself right now. What if you don't go for the flea flicker? What if you don't go for that? You just run the ball. You just run it down their throats. Or if you had, just go on the sideline. Have a chance at a field goal. It might have been a 50, 55, 56 yarder, but I would have taken that chance. And then the overtime. Why would you go for two instead of just one? This is not on the players. And I feel bad for them. They lose a lot of experience. There's questions next year for Groves. There is. But those three errors is the difference between a trip to Ford Field and then sitting at home. That was the difference. I just don't know how to explain it. I mean, just watching the game, hearing from my friend watching the game, he couldn't believe it. And I still can't believe it. Even on this day, even when we're filming now, I cannot believe Groves gave that one away. I just can't believe it. You had a golden opportunity awaiting you to go to Ford Field for the first time in school history. And now you're not going there. You had everything lined up for you. Wasn't the players who blew it. It was the coaches who blew it. And I know at the end of the day, players play, coaches coach. But that game, clearly, that loss falls on the coaches. It does. Play calling, very questionable at best in that game. If you just run the ball. Noah Sanders had an incredible game for them. He had an incredible game. You have another power back in Mario Machado. But you take a flea flicker. In the third quarter. And that don't work, you lose 10 yards. Or time management. That's really, you have a chance, go down the field and win a game. You have a chance. You don't do it. Maybe it'd take a long 59-yard field goal. And then in overtime, Just kick the extra point. You'll be up 28-21. And instead, you go for two, and it doesn't work out. I don't know how to explain this. You can't. Clear as day, Groves gave that one away. Clear as day. I mean, yeah, I give Ocean Lake St. Mary's a lot of credit, but that game was more Groves giving it away. It really was. And I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't know. But bottom line is, they should be the ones playing at Ford Field. But they're not. And imagine Ocean Lake St. Mary's wins a D2 state title. That's going to make a lot of fans in Beverly Hills, a lot of students, a lot of teachers, a lot of in the administration sick to their stomach. And it should. But bottom line is, it wasn't the players that cost them the game. It was not. It was the coaches that cost them the game. But bottom line is, that's what happened over at West Bloomfield. I still can't figure it out. I really can't. Bottom line is, you had an opportunity. You had an opportunity to get to Ford Field. You look at proven powers in the OAA that have been to Ford Field. You look at Lake Orion's been there. You look at Oxford's been there. You look at Clarkson's been there. West Bloomfield's been there. I mean, Adams has been there. Harper Woods has been there. And you had a chance to get there. First time in school history. First time in school history. And you lose like that. Because he tried to gamble and win. Decided to be a little bit more aggressive instead of the conservative route. Bottom line is, if you have a team, you just run the ball over with success, you don't need trick plays. You really don't. Bottom line is, we're at right now. I mean, can't explain it. Groves had a heck of a season. They did. Going unbeaten until that game. I don't know why. I just don't know why. How to explain it. I just don't know why. I mean, they had a chance. And bottom line is, it wasn't the players. It was the coaches who lost in the game. That's the bottom line. That really is. And I can't sugarcoat it. I just can't sugarcoat it. I know you look at people say, well, you're ranting about it, you know what I mean? I mean, you look at the game. Clearly, 3 plays was the one that done it. Oh, my goodness. And I feel bad for the players at Groves, the students over there, the student athletes over there. I just feel really bad. I just feel extremely bad for them. Because it hurts. It hurts. Really hurts. All right, let's go to the D1 state semifinal over at Okemos. Adams took on Hudsonville over at Okemos. In that game, you kind of look at the big deal with Adams. I mean, like when the injuries happen in football. I mean, they really do. But Adams had 2 big injuries in that game. which ended up costing him. Adams ended up losing 27-7 to Hudsonville. They had a lot of trouble with the quarterback. Quarterback ended up accounting for all 4 touchdowns, 3 on the ground and then 1 in the air. But it was more of Coach Petrino gambling, you know what I mean, on a couple things. He gambled on a couple things. The 4th down fumble, but I really think the play that changed the entire game was in the middle of the second quarter, where Adams had a chance to go 14-7, and they fumbled the ball at the Hudsonville 1-yard line. Hudsonville ended up recovering. That kept the score at 7-7 at the time. I got to give Howard Ferris a lot of credit for stepping in the backup quarterback role. He did a really good job for this team. He played wide receiver when Rylan Waters was the starter. He stepped in a really tough spot at the Lake Orion game. Really started getting better. He started learning the quarterback spot a little bit better. Getting better, improving each week. He had that big 30, I think it was a 39-yard touchdown pass to Tommy Oliver. That tied the score for Adams at the time. But you got to give Hudsonville credit. They had a game plan. They stuck with their game plan, played long drives, almost similar to that of Adams. Adams is a team that loves the long drives. Especially when you're a Veer offense. But Adams is. The thing that really got Adams was the 2 injuries that were big and the mistakes. They made some key mistakes. Ferris throwing an interception, tipped interception. Then Adams turning the ball around downs. I think this game, honestly, that game was on Coach Tony Petrino. I respect the aggressiveness that Coach Petrino likes to go with. But some of those times, when you had the ball at the middle of the field, I know you feel you're confident in your offensive line, but there's some times where you just punt the ball and play field position. And I think that was the difference in the game against Hudsonville was Adams, they decided to go for it on 4th and short a lot of the time. Instead of just maybe punting the ball, instead of going for it on 4th down most of the times, just punt the ball. But I respect Coach Petrino's game plan here. Just trying to keep drives alive, but there's some times where you're gonna have to just, say, you know what? Just punt it. You know what I mean? Just punt it, play field position. Really, that because if you don't get it, imagine if you don't get it on 4th down, you're gonna lose. Then it puts your defense in a rough spot. You're going halfway. It gives the opponent halfway down the field, and look what happened. You really look at in that game, the difference was obviously the mistakes that Coach Petrino, and it put Adams in a really tough spot. And, and I think honestly, the difference in that game was, Hudsonville took advantage of the mistakes, the mistakes. And Adams ended up, in some tough spots. And, bottom line is, and I know it's hard in a Veer, to when you're trailing by a certain amount, it's really hard to come back. You're forced to throw the ball, which is not Adams' forte. Adams is a team that does not want to throw the ball a ton. They don't. But they have players who can throw it. But I just think when I look at the game, just basically what happened was when Adams couldn't convert on their fourth downs, Hudsonville took advantage. Griffin Baker, as I mentioned, the quarterback for Hudsonville, had three rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. And it was just the injuries and too many mistakes. That's really what happened there. You know? So when I look at Adams, it would not surprise me next year. Yes, they lose Mateo Humbert. That's going to be a big, big loss for them. They do lose a lot up front. But I'll tell you what, I really like this Adams team coming back. Howard Ferris moving the wide. You got another proven wide receiver coming back. And then you're going to have a healthy Rylan Waters next year. And program strength looks solid over there at Adams. I'll tell you what, it would not surprise me next year that Adams will be back where they're at. And a lot of that, you look at that junior class, you look at that junior class. That junior class went undefeated their freshman year. There is plenty of talent on that team. And you look at what Coach Petrino's done. You know, when he's had talent, you look at what he's done. He's done magic over there. He's done some magic over there. You know, as I mentioned, he was the one who brought the Veer into the OAA. So when I look at Adams, you know, and I'm looking at comparing Adams, Harper Woods, and Groves' situation, Groves loses a lot of talent next year. Whereas Adams and Harper Woods, they got a lot of talent coming back. So when I look at Adams next year, they're going to be fine. Yes, this stinks. Yes, this hurts. But now for Adams, you have those players who you called up on your JV. They got extra practices. Now you got extra motivation to get back to where you're at next year. Now you know where to get back in. Now you know. So when I look at Adams, the loss to Hudsonville, now you got a goal to get to Ford Field. You're going to be a healthy team next year. You know, you got to replace some key people, obviously, running game, but they got players who can do it. I mean, you look at that freshman class that they had this year. It's a pretty good class they got. I mean, that's a really good class they got. Their freshman team went unbeaten this year. Their freshman team went unbeaten. So the future is bright for Adams. And I think for them, when they put the Veer in there, and then you add the speed part of it, you know, that's going to make you that much more dangerous. And I think Adams is going to be a really, really dangerous team next year. And, you know, for Adams, this is what I'd say to them. Tough loss, but you look at next year, you know what I mean, you got a lot coming back. It would not surprise me next year if Adams is back in the state semifinals. It really wouldn't surprise me. I think Adams will be a force to be reckoned with. And I think they're going to be a team that could seriously contend next year in D1. I really think when I look at Adams next year, if, you know, you look at Hudsonville and the Troy Cass Tech, the Division I state final, I think I would put Adams in that conversation next year. I really would. Maybe Clarkston, maybe Lake Orion, Oxford, I don't know. But definitely, and maybe West Bloomfield. I mean, West Bloomfield, you know, so we'll see. We'll see. But definitely for sure, Adams, they will be back. I think Adams football next year will be back. Mark my words. Adams football will be back. Okay, now let's go to Division 4. The Division 4 state semifinals was at Stony Creek. Harper Woods falling 28-14 to Goodrich. It was a rematch of a 35-24 Harper Woods win in the Division 4 state semifinals over Adam Livonia Franklin, where Harper Woods ended up winning that game. The difference in this game was, I know Goodrich was motivated. I know they were absolutely motivated. And I just think when I look at that game, was Chase Burnett was the complete story in that game for Goodrich. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. And I got to give the Martians defense a lot of credit for shutting down a high-octane Harper Woods offense, especially when you have players like DeAndre Bidden. You got Dakota Garrett, Kobe Bailey, Nate Washington at quarterback. I mean, you got to give the defense props for shutting down that high-octane offense. Now, there was some questionable play calling in that game. One play in particular question was, for Harper Woods, was why do you go for it on 4th down and 1 from your own 30? And instead you give them a short field, which leads to a Goodrich touchdown. That's probably the only play call I would question for Coach Oden. But when I look at that game against Goodrich, the story of the game was Chase Burnett. I mean, he had a monster game against a good Pioneer defense. Now Harper Woods has had some moments where they look good at times, but then there was some moment, and then there were some moments where they going like, "What are you doing?" And how would I explain? I mean, how would you explain? Basically, like, and Harper Woods, I kind of look at this year for them was kind of like a year, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they had a great chance to repeat. But, you look at this team and you say to yourself, okay, you're coming off a Division 4 state championship. You're coming off it's hard. It's always hard to defend a state championship. And Harper Woods knew coming in was they were going to get everybody's best shot, and they for sure did. I mean, you look at the losses this year for them. Losing at Oxford, they were completely shut down in the ground. And then you look at the game against Novi Detroit Catholic Central. That's the game where Washington went down. And then the loss to Groves. I mean, like, obviously, not playing without your starting quarterback, that says a lot right there. But when you look at Harper Woods, losing Kobe Bailey's a big loss. But you still got proven players coming back. You look at your quarterbacks coming back in Nate Washington. You got Dakota Grant coming back. DeAndre Bidden coming back. You got the bulk of your line coming back. Your defense is going to be solid next year. I mean, Harper Woods, they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. Even though this loss stings and it hurts, and you do lose a lot of good talent, Harper Woods has built a program. They have built something under Coach Oden. They've done a wonderful job doing it. And then you look at the benefits of the OAA schedule for Harper Woods. Playing that schedule, it helped them. It clearly helped them. When you look at, of course, getting in the playoffs, you know what I mean? Getting the 5th most playoff points. Now, when you look at Goodrich, you know what I mean? Goodrich was motivated coming into that game. You know that they've had to have circled that game on the schedule. They've had to. Because You look at that game last year. I mean, Goodrich had a good start against them. They just couldn't maintain. Harper Woods found a way, came back, and, Stephon Buford took over that game. Buford had an incredible game for Harper Woods that game down in Livonia. He had an incredible game for them. But they found a way and won that game. Goodrich basically I know what Goodrich does. What they did. They basically, after that loss in Livonia, they circled the wagons and wrote down that we were going to see this team again. And they prepared for Harper Woods. They prepared for the speed that they were going to run. They prepared I just couldn't believe the job that the Goodrich defense did on Dakota Garrett and DeAndre Bidden. I could not believe that. And then once that defense really shut down Harper Woods. They forced, and I also think when that game for Harper Woods, you got to look at the weather. I know Coach Oden's is not gonna use the weather as an excuse, but the weather in that game was cold. It was damp. It was cloudy. And when you look at with Harper Woods, their offense, bottom line is, for them, they have a very good air raid attack. It's when you run the ball, and during the playoffs, you got to have a stout running game. And we talked about this, Coach Oden and I. We talked about this a ton on the podcast. Was if you have a good rushing attack, that'll take care of itself out. And especially in these type of conditions in the playoffs, you're going to have to rely on your ground attack if you're going to be successful. So, how do I look with Harper Woods? Looking at them next year, you got a lot coming back. It's the same thing I said with Adams when I look at Harper Woods. Same thing. Same thing. When I describe Adams, they got a lot coming back. But so does Harper Woods. They have a lot coming back. They have a well-oiled machine over there. They do. You look at the matchup in the D4 state championship game. You look at Goodrich taking on Niles. Niles, I couldn't believe what they did to Grand Rapids South Christian. They put up 62 points on them. And that's a team that had a proven quarterback, Carson Biss. I knew how good Niles was. And for them to do that against Grand Rapids South Christian, that is impressive. To put up 62 on the Sailors. My goodness. My goodness. So there's not a lot to explain. But when I look at next year for Harper Woods, it's the same thing I said with Adams. They have a lot of talent. Rushing attack's a concern. But they have line play. Defense is stout. You have a proven quarterback. You have proven receivers. Bottom line is, about Harper Woods and Coach Oden, they will be back. The Woods will be back. Harper Woods will be back. Bottom line, Harper Woods will be back. And I think they're going to be back. And it wouldn't surprise me next year. They're back at Ford Field. It really wouldn't surprise me. Look at the recap of the football season here. Obviously, three OA teams getting in state semifinals and Adams, Groves, and Harper Woods. Looking at each team, I'm going to start with the gold. I'm going to start with the gold division here. Looking at Pontiac, I'm curious to see next year how Pontiac handles life without Kanye Donaldson. Finished the year at 1-8. Started off strong. Had a big win. Week 1, but just lost 8 straight to close out the year. Interesting to see how Coach Wendell Jefferson handles that. Be really interesting to see how that one goes. Royal Oak. Royal closed out the year with the 21-7 win over Clawson. Kept keeping them out of the playoffs. Finished the year at 3-6. So when I look at Royal Oak, I think they got some pieces next year. They got some pieces. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Coach Colin Campbell handles that situation. Be very curious to see how that one goes. Berkeley. Nice year for Coach Casey Humes, winning 2 games. They were 0-9 last year. Finished year at 2-7. They do lose. They got some key players coming back. It's really interesting to see how Berkeley does next year. We're really curious to see how this one goes. Ferndale. Ferndale made the playoffs. Winning 49. Finished the year getting in the playoffs, winning 10-0 in week 9 against Utica 4-2. Fell to Groves in the first round, 49-14. They're going to be a much different team with Coach Eric Royal stepping down. So I'll be curious to see who takes over there. So I'll be really curious to see how that one goes. Then Avondale. Finished the year. Got in the playoffs, but they lost 42-0 in the district final to Walled Lake Western. Outscored 92-22 in their last 2 games. I've been hearing a lot of rumblings with Avondale surrounding Coach Bob Meyer. I don't know if it's true or not. I can't confirm. I can't verify it. I don't even know what's going on over there at Avondale, but I can't confirm if Coach Bob Meyer stepped down at Avondale. It'll be something to really watch. I will have it on the blog if it's confirmed that he did step down, but I just can't confirm it yet. I really can't. Then we go to the blue division here. Bloomfield Hills finishing the year at 1-8. Another one here I've been hearing a lot about was Coach Dan Loria stepping down. I can't confirm that. I can't verify that. But I've been hearing a lot. I've been hearing rumblings about it, but I just can't verify or confirm it. So that's another possible opening if that were true. That Dan Loria might be stepping down at Bloomfield Hills. So, it'll be interesting to see how that team looks next year, seeing where they're at. So it'll be really interesting to see how that one goes. Seaholm, nice year for them. Really, I thought for them this year they kind of overachieved this year. A lot of people look at Seaholm, young team, young inexperienced team. They really had a nice year. They were 6-0 heading into North Farmington. Had a really difficult loss to them. Then they got shellacked by West Bloomfield. Then shellacked by Groves. But 1-3 in their last 4 games to close out the year. 2 of those losses to arch rival Groves. So, I really think this year for CM, they really overachieved this year. And that's really where I have with them. They really performed well. So they had a nice year. Seaholm had a really, really nice year. And we'll see. I mean, Seaholm next year, they should be better next year. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we're going to see what happens with them going forward with Seaholm. Next, Troy Athens. Troy Athens finished at 2-7. Went out on top with the 42-7 win against Fraser. Troy Athens, they do lose a lot of talent. I do have some questions about the direction of the program. So that'll be something to watch for this offseason. Obviously, you know what I mean, like another 2-7 year. I don't know what the program strength situation is over there. So there's a lot of questions that I have with Troy Athens heading into next year when it comes to that area. So we'll see what happens with them. Troy, 35-7 loss North Farmington week 9. Keep them out of playoffs second straight year. I mean, you can't describe it. You really cannot describe it, what happened with Troy. They lose Noah Ori. You lose Lucas Tick. You lose Jalen Peacock. You got some big questions next year. Your program strength's not the greatest. I mean, you do have a younger block coming into the system. But there's a lot of questions next year for Troy. And for Coach Chris Fraser. There's a lot of questions next year for them. So we'll see what happens with them. Oak Park. Boy, if they were in D3, they would have made a run. I mean, if they were in D3, they would have made a run. Instead, they were up in D2. Didn't make the playoffs. A lot of what-ifs for Coach Greg Carter's team. A lot of what-ifs. A lot of them. But, you know, if they stayed in D3 instead of going up to D2, I think they're a playoff team. I just think they're a playoff team. So, we'll see. North Farmington got the playoffs, won the Blue this year. Had a really tough 42-7 loss in the first round, Orchard Lake St. Mary's. They were just basically got sentenced by the MHSAA, basically. I mean, North Farmington had no chance in that game against St. Mary's. No chance. But they had a nice year. Really good year. Winning the Blue, but I just feel bad for them. They were just dealt a terrible fate. That's really what it was. Farmington. Great year for Farmington. They got to the playoffs. Knocked out Lakeland. Finally got healthy. And then they ran into Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the district final. Had no chance in that one, falling 51-0. I like the direction Coach Jason Albright's having that team going. I like where the direction is going. I think Farmington's going to be a team to watch for next year. I think they're going to be a team to watch. Despite losing their quarterback, losing their running backs, there is some talent on that team over there at Farmington. There is talent on that program over there. We'll see what happens. Southfield, Arts and Tech. When I look at the Warriors, finish year, 2-7. Closed out knocking off Detroit Renaissance 26-22. Like I said, a rough year. You win a Division I state championship, and then you lose you lose your head coach. You lose a ton of experience. It was going to be a rough year anyway for Coach Keith McKenzie. It was going to be really, really tough. It was going to be difficult. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. It'll be really interesting. It'll be really interesting to see what they into next year. Really is. Rochester. Closed out the year strong. They finished the year strong. Won 45-8 over Walled Lake Western. Finished the year at 4-5. The loss of Stony Creek was the one that really dealt them a terrible fate. I just think, winning the last two games, it's a start, hopefully for them next year, start to bigger and better things for them next year. So Rochester, it'll be interesting to see what the Falcons have next year. It'll be really, really interesting to see. So we'll see what happens there. Stony Creek. They made the playoffs. First year under Coach Rick Powell. Ran into Adams in the first round, falling 44-14. You do lose Spencer Beekman and Sam Folger. Those are going to be two big losses. But you have a nucleus coming back. Your freshman is really good. Your JV went undefeated this year. They're going to be very good. Program strength is strong for Coach Rick Powell and the Cougars. They're going on the upside. Don't be surprised next year when you look at around the OAA poll. It would not surprise me if Stony Creek's right in the top 5. It really would not surprise me. I've got that much high expectation with the Cougars next year. They're going to be really, really good. They're going to be really good. Groves. You know, I ranted about this team, and earlier in the podcast, 3 plays. Players weren't responsible for that loss. The coaches were. And so many what ifs. So many what ifs. So many what ifs. You know, they lose a lot of experience. I'll be curious to see what Coach Flaherty has next year. But he's got, for sure, I know for sure that coaching staff in Beverly Hills, they got a lot of soul searching to do. So many what ifs. So many what ifs. Harper Woods, they got back to state semifinals. Ran to a motivated Goodrich team. As I mentioned earlier, they got a lot of talent coming back. They're going to be fine. Harper Woods will be fine. They did lose a lot, but they got a machine over there. They got a program over there. Harper Woods is going to be fine. They're going to be fine. So, we'll see. We'll see. Oxford. Great year for the Wildcats. Great year for them. First league championship since 2007 when they were in the Flint Metro League, winning the red title. They beat Davison 21-14, but lost 29-7 to Grand Blanc in the district finals. They do lose a lot. They're going to lose a lot for Coach Zach Line. But you do return your quarterback in Jack Hendricks. You have Eli Tabor coming back. Oxford could be a player next year. They could be. We'll see. We'll see. But it's going to be a much different team next year over at Oxford. It'll be a much different team. But it had shades of the 2018 team. Had shades of the 2021 team. We'll see what happens next year. We will see what happens next year with Oxford. Adams. You know, obviously the top 27-7 loss to Hudsonville. They do return a lot. Junior class, as I mentioned, was very good. You do return Rylan Waters. You do have Cam Darwood at wide receiver. You do have Nolan Ferris at wide, likely going back to wide receiver. Losing Mateo Humbert's going to hurt this team. It's going to, but program strength for Adams has been really good for them. So, I think Adams, honestly, they're going to be back in the conversation. Adams will be back in the conversation. So, we'll see. We'll see. Could they be in the top-ranked team to start the year next year? That's a possibility. So, we'll see what happens. Clarkston. Oof. I don't know how to explain that 41-0 loss to Adams. You do have the Bowmans coming back, the Bowman twins. Alex Bochensko had a really nice year quarterback. Nick Mahaney coming back. That's going to be huge. The deep threat's a question mark for Clarkston. Defense is a concern. I think offensive line is a concern. For Coach Justin Pintar. For Clarkson fans, they don't want to experience 41-0 ever again. And really, that's going to be the key for Adams. They got to get that figured out. They really do. Lake Orion. When I look at the Dragons, it is clear as day they got a Clarkson problem. They have got a Clarkson problem. Clarkson's 14-3 against them in their last 17 games. I think for them, it's going to be, I think Lake Orion needs to hit a reset button. Basically, go back to what got them to dance. The blue-collar, hardworking mindset that we know Lake Orion coach Chris Bell loves about this team. When you look at Lake Orion, they're not going to certainly be talented next year, but if you're a blue-collar, hardworking team, that's going to get you places. And I think Lake Orion's got a chance to do that. Obviously, you look at the quarterback situation next year. I think it'll likely be Brody Thompson starts. I mean, Anthony Adams is a really good quarterback as well. Defense will be interesting to watch. But Lake Orion, the sophomore class coming up, the juniors, it's a good class. But they've got to get some things addressed. Especially the mental mindset. I think that's going to be the key for Lake Orion is the mental mindset, the mental psyche. If they can get that addressed, then I think that'll be a team that could surprise some folks. But there's some things they got to do. Accountability's got to be held with that team, I think. But that's clearly going to be the thing for Lake Orion is this is a program, and I think, in my opinion, just hit the reset button, you know what I mean? Go back to basics with the blue-collar, hard-working type team. If they can do that, I think it could be in line for a nice year. So, we'll see what happens. And then our last team is West Bloomfield. An up and down year. I mean, their offense at times looked really good. Their defense was very spotty at times. I mean, you look at the Lakers. You do return Jamal Shakespeare. You got the majority of the defense coming back. You do lose a lot of talent. You do lose Elijah Jackson. You do lose, you lose Cam Flowers. It's a big loss. And then losing Josh Tate, that's going to be a big loss for West Bloomfield. So when I look at the Lakers, next year, they're going to be talented, but the question for me is going to be on the offensive side of the football when I look at the Lakers. So a lot of questions when I look at West Bloomfield. A lot of questions. So we'll see what happens going forward with the Lakers going forward there when talking about West Bloomfield. So we'll see what happens. So that's my take on the on football. I know there's been a lot of rumors going around with Waterford. Kettering and Waterford possibly coming into the league. I know Brandon Fossum and MI Prep Zone have confirmed something, but I cannot confirm it yet if they are in. But it'll be interesting to see how it's a possibility that these two teams would come into the league, would rejoin the league, but I cannot verify it. I mean, so we'll see what happens. I know it's been in the news lately, so that is something to keep an eye on. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it as we head into the winter months, and also as we head into the next season. So we'll see what happens going forward with the league. I know today's the first day of boys basketball season. A couple interesting matchups starting up. I have the preview on the blog at SagamBay4650 at blogspot.com for the latest information around the OAA. And also, the girls basketball preview will be released coming up in the little of the week. So we'll see what happens going forward as we head into the final stretches of the end of the fall season and we start into the winter season. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to sign off here. Make sure you follow the blog at SagamBay4650 at blogspot.com. Wish everybody around OAA Nation a happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully, you're watching a lot of football, eating a lot of turkey, spending time with your families, and enjoying the extended holiday. So I wish everybody the best of luck. Take care. God bless, and I will see you all next week. God bless, and see you all next week. God bless.